now faded, cracked, and strangely oily, like old skin after too much sun. Her house was in Pine Hollow, a town that barely made it on maps. People didn't move there, they just stayed, like the town had its own gravity. We had gone to visit her while my parents took a week-long trip to Canada. I was excited. No rules, no alarms, no busy morning routines. Just me, some old cartoons, and the comfort of a house that always smelled like warm wood and chamomile tea. But there was something about that hallway, the one that led to the laundry room, the attic stairs, and the blue door at the very end. The blue door had no knob, no keyhole, just a rusted brass plate, nailed shut, like someone had once wanted to lock it, not from the outside, but from within. And every time I asked about it, my grandmother would just say, "That room isn't part of the house anymore." That phrase stayed with me, still does. What does that even mean? The first few nights were calm, quiet, peaceful even. But on the fourth night, a storm rolled in. Not just rain and thunder. The kind of storm where the whole sky shakes, where lights flicker like they're trying to decide whether they belong in this world or not. My grandmother was called away unexpectedly. Her friend Helen, who lived 2 streets over, had taken a fall and needed help. She told me she'd be back before midnight, that everything would be fine, and that I should stay downstairs and keep the fire going. I remember feeling proud, trusted. It was the first time anyone left me completely alone in a house that big. I was curled up on the couch with a blanket and an old VHS tape when the power cut. No pop, no warning, just silence, so pure and so total that I could hear the rain whispering against the windows. I got up to find a flashlight. My grandma kept one in a kitchen drawer next to the pantry. I remember opening it and feeling around for it, and then pausing, because the hallway felt wrong. You know how a space changes when someone's in it? The way a room suddenly feels smaller, warmer, watched. That's how the hallway felt. And that's when I noticed. The blue door was open, not wide, just an inch, but enough. Enough to know that it hadn't been that way before. I walked to the edge of the hallway and just stared. There was no sound, except the ticking of the old wall clock. But I swear, something about the air had changed. It smelled like wet stone and bleach, like an old basement no one had used in decades. I tried to convince myself that the storm had shifted something, a draft, a floorboard swelling, but that latch wasn't supposed to come loose. I walked down the hallway slowly, flashlight in hand. I reached out, pushed the door closed. It didn't click, it just floated there. So I pulled over a heavy wooden chair from the hallway and jammed it under the latch. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to hold. I went back to the living room and waited for sleep to find me, but it didn't. At some point past midnight, I woke up, cold, not just chilly. My breath had turned white. My fingers stung. I pulled the blanket tighter, but the air in the house felt wrong, like all the warmth had been drained from it. Then I noticed something else. The fire had gone out. I sat up, rubbed my eyes, and that's when I heard it. Creak, not the normal kind. This one was low, stretched, almost moist, like something heavy moving across wet wood. I turned toward the hallway. The flashlight was still beside me. I grabbed it and slowly made my way toward the back of the house. The chair was gone. The blue door, wide open. The hallway, soaking wet. There were muddy streaks across the floor, like something had crawled through. I froze. Every instinct in my body screamed to run, but I was 9. I didn't know what to do with fear that big. So I stepped forward, 1 foot, then another. The smell hit me first. Metal, mold, and something faintly sweet, like rotting fruit. I reached the blue doorway. I aimed the flashlight in. The room was pitch black. The beam caught something in the corner. A shape. Thin. Upright. Wrong. Its head was turned toward me, but I couldn't see its face. Just long, stringy hair, dripping wet, and hanging like ropes over its shoulders. I blinked. The flashlight flickered, and when it came back on, the shape was gone. I ran. Didn't even look back. Downstairs. Into the pantry. I locked the door and shoved a mop under the handle. And then, I waited and waited. But I wasn't alone. The sound started slow, wet feet slapping the tile. Then the whispering began, from the hallway. Then the living room. Then, the walls. You opened it. You opened it. You let it out. Something scratched across the pantry door. A fingernail. Maybe 10. Then, breathing. So close I could feel the cold seeping through the wood. And then, it said my name. Not screamed. Whispered. Like it was inside my own head. I don't remember falling asleep. But when I woke up, the house was warm again. The fire was lit. The chair was back in place, the floor dry. My grandmother was humming in the kitchen, like nothing had happened. But she paused when she saw me. She looked at me, the way people look at old photos that bring back bad memories. Then she asked, "Did you go near the blue door?" I didn't speak. She nodded slowly. She never asked again. That night she painted the latch shut with thick, gray primer. Not once. Not twice. 7 coats. We never spoke of it again. But the next summer, she sold the house. And to this day, I haven't seen her smile since. Some doors don't stay shut. Some rooms remember who opened them. And some names aren't safe to speak out loud. Before we get into the next story, if you're here for the first time, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so you're notified when the next scary story arrives. We need your support. If this story chills you, share it with your friends, with your family, with anyone who dares to listen. Thanks for being here. This happened during a thunderstorm when I was 19. I was house sitting for a couple I didn't really know, and I still think someone else thought I wasn't supposed to be there. It was one of those rainy nights that makes everything feel unreal, like the world's under a wet sheet of glass. I had agreed to house sit for a coworker of my mom's. The couple was flying to Denver for the weekend. They had a 2-story house on the edge of a wooded neighborhood about 30 minutes outside town. Quiet, safe, private, or so I thought. They left Friday morning. I had the house to myself for 2 nights. They told me to feed the dog, keep the porch light on, and make myself at home. By nightfall, it started raining. Not just rain, a heavy, rattling storm with wind strong enough to bend the trees outside. I curled up on the couch with a blanket and the dog, Buddy, snoring beside me. The house was unfamiliar, but warm. Safe. Until the doorbell rang. It was close to midnight. I paused the TV, sat up. The rain was hammering against the windows, but I heard it clear. One single chime. Buddy didn't bark. He didn't even lift his head. That's what struck me first. He had barked earlier when a raccoon got near the porch. But now, nothing. I stood and walked toward the door. There was no one outside. No car. No footsteps on the porch. Just the wind and the floodlight flickering in the rain. I figured maybe the storm caused a glitch with the bell. I went back to the couch. A few minutes later, there was a knock. Not on the front door this time. On the back glass door. A sharp, deliberate knock. Buddy finally stood up. Ears high. Tail stiff. He growled. I froze. That door led to the back deck, which wrapped around the house and faced the woods. No way someone should be back there. I moved slowly, not turning on any lights. I peeked through the kitchen window. Nothing. But as I reached for the light switch, my hand stopped. Because I saw something on the glass. a palm print, pressed against the glass like someone had leaned into it. It was fresh, sliding, smearing down the door like they were trying to push through. I backed up, locked the door, ran to the front, locked that too, checked every window, every latch. The house had too many damn windows. I turned off all the lights and sat in the hallway with Buddy. I had no signal. The storm had knocked out service. That's when the power went out. Total darkness. The rain was deafening now. Roof groaning. Trees scraping the siding. Then I heard movement upstairs. 2 floors. But I was supposed to be alone. I couldn't breathe. Buddy stood, staring up the stairs, tail between his legs. I grabbed a kitchen knife and started dialing 911 from the house landline. It rang, and then stopped. Someone had taken the phone off the hook upstairs. No voices, no footsteps. Just a sound, like something dragging across carpet. I whispered for Buddy to come. He wouldn't move, wouldn't even bark. Just stood there, watching the stairs, trembling. That's when I saw the shape. Half a face. At the top of the stairs, a man, dirty hoodie, soaking wet, eyes wide, mouth slightly open like he was about to speak. But he didn't. He just turned and walked down the hallway. I bolted, out the front door, barefoot in the rain, Buddy right behind me. I didn't even stop to grab keys or shoes, just ran to the neighbor's porch and banged on their door until they answered. Police came within minutes, found muddy footprints on the back deck and upstairs, but no signs of forced entry. No broken glass. Nothing stolen. The attic access was open. Whoever he was already in the house before I ever locked the doors. I still don't know how he got in. I still don't know what he wanted. And I never went back to that house, but I know this. If your dog goes quiet, if someone knocks during a storm, and if the house starts feeling colder than it should, you're not alone. You're just the last one to realize it. This happened 2 years ago when I was working as an on-call technician for a medical device company. I don't talk about it much, because no one really knows what to say after they hear it. But I remember everything, especially the knocking. It was raining hard that night, the kind of rain that hits your windshield sideways, blurs everything, even time. I'd just gotten off a late shift at the clinic. I was soaked, exhausted, and wanted nothing more than to get back to my rental cabin. I'd been stationed in a remote part of Oregon for 6 weeks, company paid, isolated, forest-lined service road about 20 minutes from the highway. It was quiet, cheap, and until that night, it felt safe. I got back a little after 10 p.m., threw my wet jacket on the hook, made some instant noodles, and crashed on the couch. No signal, no neighbors. Just the sound of the storm tapping on the roof and windows. The lights flickered once, then stabilized. The heater buzzed on. I remember thinking, finally, peace. I was asleep in minutes. The knock came just before midnight. 1, 2, 3. Deliberate, heavy. I sat up, still groggy, trying to process the sound. Another knock, same rhythm, 3 hits, nothing else. I got up and walked toward the front door. The porch light was out. The rain made it impossible to see through the glass. I called out, "Hello? Who is it?" No response. I opened the door just a crack, looked out. There was a man standing on the porch, soaked, mid-30s maybe, beard, hoodie, hands in his pockets, no umbrella. He wasn't facing the door, just looking off into the trees. I didn't open it fully, didn't feel right. I asked again, "You okay?" No answer. Then slowly, he turned his head. Not all the way, just enough that I could see his mouth moving, but I couldn't hear anything. Not over the rain. I stepped back, unsure. Then he looked directly at me and smiled. The kind of smile people use when they know something you don't. And then he said it, clear as day. "Let me in. I know you're alone." My stomach dropped. I slammed the door shut and locked it, then backed away, heart pounding. Adrenaline kicking in. I grabbed my work phone and dialed 911. No service. The knock came again. 3 hits. Same rhythm. Louder this time. Then silence. I waited. Frozen. Eventually I peeked through the kitchen blinds. He was gone. I checked every door, every lock, the back door, the sliding glass, all sealed tight. I kept a small utility knife in my glove box. Grabbed it and sat in the hallway listening. Half an hour passed, maybe more. Nothing, just rain, just silence. And then, knock, from inside the house, 3 times. Not on the front door, not even on the back. From the hallway closet, the one 10 feet from where I was sitting. I dropped the knife, didn't scream, didn't move, just stared. The closet door was closed, but I could see the wood, vibrating slightly, like something on the other side was breathing. I stood up shaking. I didn't open it. I couldn't. I backed away, grabbed my keys and ran out the door barefoot into the rain. Got in my car, sped off. Didn't stop driving until I hit a gas station with lights. I called the sheriff, told them everything. They met me at the cabin an hour later. No one was inside, no damage, no forced entry. But the muddy footprints on the hallway carpet, they were barefoot, from inside the closet to the bathroom and back. They never caught him, and to this day I don't know how he got in, but I know what I heard. 3 knocks, twice. The second time, he was already inside. They say if your GPS ever reroutes you through Ashburn Hollow, you turn around. I didn't. I thought it was a glitch. But that road, it doesn't take you where you think it will. This happened last October. I was driving back from my cousin's wedding in North Carolina. The plan was simple. Drive halfway through the night, crash at a cheap motel, and finish the rest in the morning. It was late. Rain had been off and on for hours, and somewhere around 1:30 a.m., my GPS rerouted. The app pinged. New route. Save 22 minutes. Highway closure ahead. It felt off, but I was tired. I didn't question it. I should have. I turned off the main highway, entered a stretch of road I didn't recognize. No signage, no service. Just cracked asphalt, unlit trees, and rain slashing sideways across my windshield. The GPS still worked, but the map was strange. The road didn't have a name, just a gray line, twisting through black nothingness. My headlights caught the rusted sign as I passed it. Ashburn Hollow Ard. I told myself it was fine, just a back road, rural shortcut. But the deeper I drove, the more wrong it felt. The trees pressed in tighter, the rain got heavier. My dashboard clock started flickering, jumping backward, minutes, then hours, and then I passed the same mailbox, twice. The first time, I thought nothing of it. Green box, faded numbers, 1036, leaning slightly to the left. The second time, I stopped the car, got out, checked. Same box, same tilt, same smear of dried mud, or something darker, on the side. I turned around, tried to drive back the way I came, but the road had changed. No turnoffs, no markings, no GPS signal, just trees, and endless winding asphalt soaked in moonless rain. That's when the fog rolled in. It didn't feel natural. It moved too fast, too thick, too heavy, too aware. I could barely see past the hood of my car, and that's when I saw him. A man, standing in the middle of the road. Head bowed, arms loose at his sides. He didn't move, didn't react to my headlights. I honked. He didn't flinch. I swerved to the right and flew past him, didn't look back. But 20 seconds later, he was there again. Same posture, same road. Only now, he was a little closer to the driver's side. I drove faster. I don't remember how long. Minutes? An hour? And then I saw lights in the distance finally. Salvation, a small diner, flickering neon sign, all night hours, 3 cars in the lot. I pulled in. Storm still howling. The windows were fogged, but I could see shapes inside. I rushed to the door and stepped in, only to find it was empty. No people, no music, just a mirror behind the bar. Old, distorted, the kind that warps your reflection slightly. Except when I looked at it, I wasn't alone. Behind me, in the reflection, was the man from the road, standing just outside the glass door, head still down, hands pressed flat against the window. I turned. There was no one there, just the wind, and an open door I swore I'd closed behind me. I ran to the back. There was an emergency exit, chained from the inside, and chalk tally marks covering the wall beside it. At least 24, maybe more. I didn't wait. I left, got in my car, kept driving. No map, no GPS, just instinct. And at some point, I passed a second sign. Now, leaving Ashburn Hollow. The road reconnected to the highway like nothing had happened. My phone buzzed. The map reappeared. But I was an hour further than I should have been. And the diner? It doesn't show up on satellite view. Neither does the road. I checked again 2 weeks later. 1036 Ashburn Hollow Broad. According to county records, the house it belonged to burned down in 1978, with the owner still inside. I don't know what that road was. I don't know what it wanted, but I know this. If your GPS ever reroutes you through Ashburn Hollow, don't follow it, because that place doesn't lead anywhere you're meant to return from. I never liked driving with my father at night, but after he passed, I kept remembering something he once told me. Something I laughed off when I was a kid. If you ever see me stop in the rain, don't ask why. Just wait, and keep the doors locked. I didn't understand it then. Now I do. My dad was a mechanic for 30 years. Quiet guy. Never talked much unless it was about engines or road maps. He wasn't religious, didn't believe in ghosts, didn't tell stories. But there was one thing he always repeated. Rain changes things. You see things you're not meant to, especially when you're driving alone. When I was 15, he picked me up from a friend's house on a stormy night. We were driving down a back road, the kind with trees hugging the edge where headlights barely reached the bend. Out of nowhere, he slowed the car, pulled to the shoulder, turned off the engine, and just sat there, not a word, hands gripping the wheel. After about a minute, he turned to me and whispered, "You didn't see her, did you?" I said no. He didn't explain. He just waited, stared out into the dark. Eventually, he started the car again, and we drove home in silence. He never brought it up, and I never asked until a few months ago. He died of a stroke last year, left behind an old Ford Ranger and a garage full of tools. I inherited the truck. Didn't want it, didn't need it, but couldn't bring myself to sell it either. One night, after a long shift and some family drama, I needed space. So I took the Ranger out. No destination, just roads, and a sky full of rain. The farther I drove, the worse the weather got. Wipers barely kept up. The storm was biblical, trees swaying, thunder cracking every few seconds. And still, I kept going. Eventually, I ended up somewhere unfamiliar. The GPS had stopped working. No street signs, no phone signal, just road and forest. Then something caught my eye. A figure, standing on the side of the road. A woman, wearing what looked like a thin, white dress, soaked through, head down, arms stiff at her sides. I slowed, not out of curiosity, but out of something else. Something I didn't understand. The rain pounded the windshield so hard I could barely see her. I stopped the car, and I remembered what he said. If you ever see me stop in the rain, don't ask why, just wait, and keep the doors locked. I locked them, turned off the engine, and sat still. She didn't move. 5 minutes passed, then 10. I started to reach for the ignition, and that's when she turned. Not her body, just her head, slowly, too slowly. Her hair was matted across her face, but I could see enough. Just enough. It wasn't a woman. Not really. Her mouth was wrong. Too wide. Too still. And her eyes weren't wet from the rain. They were bleeding. I tried to start the car. Nothing. Battery dead. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. She stepped closer, 1 foot at a time, bare feet slapping the wet asphalt. She didn't blink. Just walked up to the driver's side window and leaned in. I could hear it. Her breathing, but she didn't fog the glass. Didn't leave a mark. She was just there. And then she whispered, through the glass, through the storm. "You didn't see him, did you?" My blood ran cold. I looked in the rearview mirror, and for just a split second, I saw my dad, sitting in the back seat, dripping wet, pale, staring at me. Then he was gone. The headlights flickered on by themselves. The engine coughed, then roared to life. I hit the gas, didn't look back, drove until sunrise. When I pulled into my driveway, the truck died completely. I never drove it again. 2 weeks later, I went through my dad's garage, found one of his old notebooks. It was mostly oil changes, checklists, receipts, except for the last page. It just said, "She only comes for those who drive alone in the rain, but she leaves you a choice. Look back or live." I still don't know what I saw, or why she said what she did, but I know my dad wasn't afraid of dying. He was afraid of that road, and what happens when the storm stops you from reaching home. I moved into the building in late November. It was temporary, 6-month corporate lease. I'd taken a contract job in a small city I'd never heard of, and the company was covering housing. The apartment was old but clean. Tile floors, dim hallway lights, thin walls. It wasn't much, but after a decade in shared rentals, I was just glad to have a place to myself. The woman at the leasing office told me not to worry about neighbors. Only 5 of the 15 units were occupied, mostly retirees, quiet types. The first night it rained. Not just a drizzle, a full thunderstorm. One of those ones that makes the windows rattle like they're trying to escape. I remember lying on the couch trying to unwind when I noticed something strange. A rhythmic tapping. Not inside the apartment, not from the storm, but from the vents. At first I thought it was water dripping through the HVAC system, but it was too patterned, too deliberate. Like tap, 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 then silence. Then again. I followed the sound of the floor vent near the wall. When I knelt down, the tapping stopped, replaced by something worse. A whisper. "Did you see me?" I jumped back, sat frozen for a full minute. There had to be an explanation. The vent connected to other units. Sound carried. Maybe it was a prank. Some kid messing around in another apartment. But when I asked the leasing agent the next morning, she just blinked and said, "There are no kids here." A few days later, the power went out during another storm. I lit candles and waited it out. Around 1 a.m., I stepped into the hallway to check if the emergency lights were on. They weren't. The entire building was black except for a faint glow coming from under the door of Unit 103. I'd never met whoever lived there. Never saw them enter or leave. The blinds on their windows were always drawn tight even in the daytime. But now there was light, flickering like a candle or lantern, and I could hear something. Low, mechanical, almost like humming. Not a person humming, a machine, like a recorder, or a reel-to-reel tape loop. I took a step closer. Something crunched under my foot. I looked down. A photo. Wet. Wrinkled. Face down. I picked it up. It was a picture of me, standing in my living room, taken from outside the window. I dropped it. Ran back inside, checked every window, every door. Locked. Untouched. Except for the kitchen window. The one I always left cracked open to let out steam. It was open wider. Just slightly. I stayed awake till morning. Didn't sleep for days after that. The building got colder. Every night, no matter how high I turned the heat, the air felt damp, heavy, like something was leaking into the walls. Not water, but presence. Then, the knocking started. It was always at 3:03 a.m. 3 knocks, always on a different wall. Sometimes the front door, sometimes the bathroom tile. Once, from under the bed. I tried to tell myself it was in my head, that I was stressed, alone, overworked. But the day I found the second photo, I knew it wasn't. It was slipped under my door. Same wrinkled paper, same angle. Except this time, I was asleep, and someone was standing just outside the window, looking in. I went to the police. They sent someone to do a wellness check on Unit 103. I waited outside. The officer knocked. No answer. They opened the door with a master key. After 5 minutes, he came out pale, said the unit was empty, unfurnished, no power, no resident registered, just bare walls, an old vent cover, and a pile of wet photographs, faces, windows, shadows behind curtains. He asked if I wanted to file a formal report. I said no, because in the middle of that pile was a picture of him, walking into the room. I moved out the next morning, didn't wait for the lease to end, didn't pack, just left. The leasing agent didn't seem surprised, said she understood, said a lot of tenants don't last long in that unit. It's been over a year. I've moved twice since then. Different cities, different jobs, but sometimes, when it rains, I still hear the tapping. Tap, 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 tap. Not all neighbors want to meet you. Some just want to watch. And some places aren't haunted by ghosts, they're haunted by attention. The last time I saw her, she asked me not to come to the house again, but the storm brought me back, and now I understand why she was so afraid to die there. I hadn't seen my sister in almost a year, not because we weren't close, but because toward the end, she didn't want anyone around. Her diagnosis had come fast, aggressive cancer, late stage. She refused hospice, said she wanted to die at home, alone. Her house was old, an off-grid 2-bedroom farmhouse near a lake in rural Washington, built in the 50s, bad plumbing, bad insulation, but she loved it. Said it felt like it remembered her. After she passed, I was the only one left to clear it out. The storm hit the morning I arrived. Sheets of cold rain, flooded roads, power outages. I almost turned back, but there was something in her voice I couldn't forget. In the final voicemail she left me, 3 days before she died. If anything ever happens, don't go into the basement. I arrived around 4 p.m. The wind was already shaking the window panes. The front door was unlocked. Inside, it was dark and cold. Not just unheated, but cold, like it came from the floors, from beneath. I lit a few candles, unpacked my overnight bag, and started sorting boxes in the living room. Photos, journals, letters. There was no Wi-Fi, no cell service, just rain tapping the roof and the old walls groaning. And the smell, like metal, and wood that had been damp too long. I tried to focus, but something felt wrong. I kept thinking I heard footsteps above me, but there was no upstairs, just the attic, which was sealed shut. And worse, the basement door. It was open, just a crack. I don't remember opening it, don't remember touching it at all. But when I passed the hallway, it was slightly ajar, like someone had just gone down and forgot to close it behind them. I shut it gently and turned the latch, but that feeling in my gut stayed. Around 11 p.m., I tried to sleep on the couch, but the noises started. Not footsteps, not creaks, a scraping sound, low, slow, metal on concrete. Then a pause, and 3 knocks from below. I sat upright, straining to hear over the storm. Nothing. I told myself it was pipes, or maybe water pushing against the foundation, but it came again. Scrape, pause, 3 sharp knocks. I stood, heart racing, and walked to the basement door. Still closed, still latched, but colder, like something on the other side had pulled the warmth out of the air. I pressed my ear to it. Nothing. Then, very faintly, a whisper. I couldn't understand it, not at first. But the second time, It was clearer. You left her down here. I jumped back, nearly fell over. No one else knew I was here. No one had a key. There was no one in that house. No one alive. I didn't sleep, just sat in the kitchen with a fire poker and flashlight. I waited until morning, but it never really came. Just gray skies and more rain. I decided I had to open the door. I don't know why. Maybe guilt. Maybe the voicemail. Maybe because something in me needed to know why she was so afraid to die in that house. The latch was stiff, wet, like it hadn't been used in years, even though I'd just shut it the night before. The basement was unfinished, just wooden steps, concrete walls, and exposed pipes. No light down there, just shadows and rot. I stepped down slowly. The smell hit me like a wall. Mold, iron, and something else, sweet and sour, like meat gone bad. There was a chair at the center of the basement, facing the wall, and on the wall, words, carved, over and over again. She's still here. Some old blankets were balled up in the corner, damp, matted with hair, and beneath them, a small tape recorder, still running, still spinning. I pressed play. It was my sister's voice, but she wasn't speaking. She was humming, just one note, held and broken, like she was trying not to cry. And then, through the static, I heard a second voice, not hers, lower, male, right behind the microphone. You said you'd stay with me. You said you'd never leave. I dropped the recorder, ran back upstairs, slammed the door shut, nailed it shut. I don't remember the rest of the day. I just waited for the storm to pass. When I finally got out, I didn't speak about it. I never submitted the death certificate, never listed the house for sale. I couldn't, because I think she wasn't alone when she died. And I think, she never really left. Some people die with secrets. Others leave them carved into walls. And sometimes when it rains, I still hear her humming through the floorboards. If you're here for the first time, please make sure to subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon so you're notified when the next scary story arrives. We need your support. If this story chills you, share it with your friends, with your family, with anyone who dares to listen. Thanks for being here.